Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And that's right, finally, at long last, I'm reviewing this one piece of Disney TV animation material, and it's obvious because of, with the film that spawned this show, its anniversary, etc. You get my point. Yes, so with The Lion King, when it first came out, nobody could have imagined how phenomenal, fantastic, what a, groundbreaking, successful Disney hand-drawn animated feature this would turn out. And, for that being a part of the Disney Renaissance, following up to its last successful predecessors from The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and this. And yeah, it's amazing. And not long after The Lion King's release, there was Lion King everywhere. You look at, say, on TV and the Disney parks, I tell ya. And a year after The Lion King came out, we would get an animated TV show, obviously, something that comes from The Lion King, and it would star two of our favorite comedy relief characters, sidekicks, etc., that being Timon and Pumbaa. Yes, Timon and Pumbaa. So, yep, I am finally reviewing the Timon and Pumbaa series. So the first things I have to say about the Timon and Pumbaa series and how I knew about this. And, the thing is it's since I'm a 2000s baby, and like every other 2000s baby, we grew up with The Lion King. It was definitely one of those Disney films that we had watched and seen, especially when the special edition DVD came out. It was a special edition. It had an extra song to it. The bonus features, everything, the 2-disc DVD. It was amazing. And I didn't know anything about the Timon and Pumbaa series until when at one point during the good old days of Disney Channel, and also when Toon Disney was around, they started to re-air some of the Disney animated shows that were on during the 1990s, some of the Disney afternoon shows, and others like, say, The Little Mermaid, the Aladdin TV series, and Timon and Pumbaa being one of them, obviously. So, yeah, so that's how I knew about the show's existence, and I'm pretty sure I learned about the show after, when The Lion King 1.5 happened, because, that one, Timon and Pumbaa, would be the stars of that Lion King movie, and it would be their own movie. So, yeah, what Timon and Pumbaa were doing during the events of the first Lion King film. So, yeah. And with the show itself, it's obvious that there is no way that the show is canon to The Lion King. And the only, Lion King show material that I think, would be considered canon to the films is, well, The Lion Guard. You still had Timon and Pumbaa, but yeah. And for the Timon and Pumbaa series, because there's definitely, say, a lot of Looney Tunes stuff going on, because all the slapstick and stuff that you would see in the Looney Tunes cartoons and in this. So I had a good time watching the Timon and Pumbaa series, absolutely, along with all the other re-aired Disney animated shows. So, whenever Timon and Pumbaa were on, I definitely would be watching it. And, yeah, because I remember a good chunk of episodes and what goes on in them. And, so the Timon and Pumbaa series, a great piece of Disney TV animation, and especially when this came out in the 90s. And, because one thing I feel like mentioning, because it did at one point get canceled, but its final season wouldn't air until, say, 1999. So, yeah. What was already done for, the Timon and Pumbaa, a batch of episodes that didn't get the chance to air after it got canceled, but eventually they would in the late 90s. And I'm pretty sure, because pretty much almost every single episode of Timon and Pumbaa is on Disney+. So, and you know what? This gives younger kids the opportunity to see this piece of Lion King material. So, yeah. And fun fact, because when Disney Plus first began, Timon and Pumbaa was one of those shows that were some of my first to watch on Disney Plus. There was that, there was the Clone Wars, because the thing is, I knew that when Disney Plus, would first come out, Clone Wars would be one of the first things that I would watch, and thus I did. And then a little bit later on, during that month of November, because that's when, the Disney Plus had launched officially, I did watch Timon and Pumbaa, and I remember watching Timon and Pumbaa, like, one time I remember watching Timon and Pumbaa on Disney Plus during when my mom was getting a new car. I just thought I'd throw that out because I surprisingly remember that, and I just thought I'd mention that fun fact. So, and also, like, I can't remember what some of the other, like, shows I watched on Disney Plus. I mean, obviously, like, not just Timon and Pumbaa, but some of those other, like, Disney animated shows during the 90s. I think probably Tailspin and such. And also The Mandalorian was one of those. Of course, having to watch The Mandalorian because, the first episode started when Disney Plus started. So, yeah. So, again, Timon and Pumbaa, I very well remember Timon and Pumbaa was one of those shows, one of those first shows that I watched on Disney Plus when it first launched that month, and all right, enough said. As always, read the description / the story. The lovable warthog Pumbaa and his meerkat buddy Timon carry on the Hakuna Matata, no worries lifestyle, which can get them into plenty of jungle trouble. Watch these two friends from The Lion King as they travel on funny African adventures. Simba even stops by for a visit from time to time. Okay, so Timon and Pumbaa itself. Now getting into the show and, talking about the episodes and the characters, and if, by the way, if you noticed, there was a jump cut because, I forgot to have them up here because, and to show them off, and which, by the way, you did see them in the thumbnail, my Timon and Pumbaa figures, so just thought I'd have them here, and as I sometimes do, like having like plushes or toys, for thumbnails and so on. Anyways, so, with the episode itself, because, I think, the total of episodes in Timon and Pumbaa are 85. I can tell because Ernie Sabella is really the only voice cast member to be in every single episode, And he was one of those few voice actors from the film to reprise the role. I mean, Ernie Sabella, it's nice to see that, like, whenever needed, he would definitely come back to voice Pumbaa. But there were one or two exceptions where he was not available to voice Pumbaa, and that was just for a few video games. And no hard feelings on the voice actors who filled in for Ernie Sabella for those like one or two games. They did pretty good, but of course could never top off Ernie Sabella because he'll always be the one and only voice role of this warthog. So, and also because a couple of others that did reprise their roles, and there were a couple of others that did come back for the Timon and Pumbaa series, and those being Jim Cummings. He would come back to reprise the voice role of Ed, the hyena, and Frank Welker, because Frank Welker was a part of the first Lion King film. He did the lion roaring sounds, and there's a bit of like behind-the-scenes footage of him recording, with a trash can, so that was funny. But I mean, Frank Welker, he obviously has some voice roles in this, just making animal noises, like any animal that sometimes doesn't talk, so that's understandable. Also, the late Robert Gulliam, if I think I'm mispronouncing his last name, I apologize. You know me sometimes, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. The original voice of Rafiki. So he came back to voice Rafiki in 12 episodes. Also, Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane did come back to reprise the voice role of Timon, but sadly for only 10 episodes. Because Nathan Lane, him being a very busy guy / actor, because not only doing some movies, but also some work on the theater. So yeah, because he's done some Broadway and so on. And, well, again, nice to see that, it's understandable, because, he was able to reprise the voice role of Timon, because Nathan Lane is really no stranger to TV. So he came back to voice Timon in 10 episodes. Sometimes it would just be for, like, say, one story segment, because how the series, if you know the series and how they do episodes, that they would sometimes have, like, say, 2 or 3 segments of stories. So Nathan Lane did come back to reprise the voice role of Timon, rightfully so, but in Nathan Lane's place, when he was clearly not available, and I think he was just available for just one season, and from there on, two voice actors who would fill in for Nathan Lane, and which and after the show they would continue on filling in for Nathan Lane when he would not be available. Timon's 2 other voice actors, Kevin Shawn and Quentin Flynn. Kevin Shawn definitely voiced Timon the most, but for Quentin Flynn, not that much. I mean, definitely Kevin Shawn is the best superior voice, I want to say, to Nathan Lane. And Quentin Flynn, I don't want to be that harsh on Quentin Flynn. He's good too, but I think a lot of people seem to favor Kevin Shawn's Timon, filling in for Nathan Lane. So, yeah, so again, Kevin Shawn and Quentin Flynn, them filling in for Nathan Lane. And not to mention, because Kevin Shawn would a couple of times fill in for Nathan Lane for My Teacher's Pet, if you know that show. Just for a couple of episodes. Because, I mean, Nathan Lane did voice the main character of that show, entirely. But there were a few times where obviously Nathan Lane was not available, so Kevin Shawn had to fill in. And he still did good, yeah. Doing his best Nathan Lane impression, yeah, it's pretty good. So he can't exactly, and that also goes for Quentin Flynn. Can't really sound exactly like Nathan Lane, but just about, and to really understand and to match the personality and such of the characters that Nathan Lane has voiced. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Also, there's Jeff Bennett, there's Corey Burton, Rob Paulson, Tress MacNeille, and there's Charlie Adler, April Winchell, Billy West, Brian Cummings, and also, yeah, Simba, because Simba, he made an appearance in this, and yeah, Cam Clark, because he's voiced Simba the most, and, of course, filling in for Matthew Broderick, because, well, clearly Matthew Broderick, unfortunately, not available to voice Simba, since, he too stays busy. Also Zazu, because Zazu appears in this a couple of times, just for 4 episodes, because I'm looking at it, because as always, I have IMDb pulled up. So Zazu in the Timon and Pumbaa series, and yeah, here's Zazu, my Zazu toy. Zazu was voiced by Michael Goff, not Michael Goff, the late Michael Goff, Alfred Pennyworth, someone else going by the name of Michael Goff, okay? And he's voiced Zazu a couple of other times. Like, most notably, he voiced Zazu in The Enchanted Tiki Room Under New Management, which, yeah, sadly for everybody, because, yeah, but I thought it was okay, It was really cool to see Zazu and Iago be animatronics and how they look as animatronics. Yeah, because they gotta stay true to how those characters look, so... Okay, so getting back into the show itself, because, yeah, I mean, how I'm gonna, talk about the episodes and such, I mean, I'm, not gonna bother, saying them by name. I'm just gonna talk about the show randomly and so on, but yeah, so, and, to mention the voice cast, just to start with that first, and if anybody else that I didn't get to yet. So, anyways, so yeah, and also because with my experience watching the show and, episodes that I remembered watching very well and rewatching them, including episodes that I had not seen before, yeah, so Yeah, again, because with what this show had to offer, with its slapstick and comedy, so much craziness happening with Timon and Pumbaa, but sometimes there would be a couple of story segments where Timon and Pumbaa would not be the focus. Sometimes there would be stories centering on Rafiki, Zazu, and most notably, the hyenas, Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed. And aside from Jim Cummings, because he was the only one out of the three hyenas, to reprise his role, as one of the three hyenas, you get my point, Bonsai and Shenzi would this time, for this, and a couple of other times when their original voice actors were not available, unfortunately, I think, Kath Susie, she voiced Shenzi, and Rob Paulson voiced, my bad. It was Tress MacNeille who voiced Shenzi, and Rob Paulson voicing Bonsai, two of the Animaniacs Warners voicing the hyenas. That's funny. And speaking of which, because Jess Harnell also had a voice role as well, but I'll get to his character not just yet. So yeah, and with the hyenas, because, two episodes that I can remember very well that those hyenas were in and what happened with them, one episode is where, story/segment where, they find this crate that has a lot of joke stuff, from Clown Nose and that. And another episode, which actually I watched very recently, because I did a little rewatch of this show, because why not, even if I didn't have to, but yeah, still, just in case a little, yeah. So one episode with one story/segment with the hyenas that I watched very recently is one where they're trying to get their hands on an emu egg and gobble it up. But unfortunately, the mother emu steps in and stopping the hyenas. And, one line that she says throughout, the entire story/segment, it's not nice to steal. And then when finally the egg hatches, it's a big emu. And, well, of course, in the end, they dispose the three hyenas. And in that same episode, with that one story/segment with the hyenas, two others, which, of course, had to do with Timon and Pumbaa. One where, because they have to help and take care of a little baby, I want to say it's, there was one where they took care of a baby crocodile, but in this one, it's a panda, because there are a couple of times where they travel to different parts of, say, jungles and such, they would travel to Asia, or just different parts of the jungle. It's pretty funny. So we know where pandas are, and so, they help out a baby panda get back to his or her mommy, which they do, but then at one point, they have to deal with another baby, which I think is a baby rhino, yeah. And in that episode, in that story/segment, Nathan Lane was the voice of Timon, and in that same episode, because I remember this very well, it's a musical episode, Timon's music cover of Stand By Me. I'm sure most of you would probably be familiar with that, and any of you like me have gone to Disney World, and, with the TVs in your Disney hotel/resort rooms, one channel where it would just play, classic Disney cartoons, and in between, one moment, after one Disney cartoon finishes, which I remember very well, it was a Donald Duck cartoon. He was trying to take a picture of a woodpecker, and after that finished, then played the music cover of Stand By Me with Timon and Pumbaa. So I hope as though some of you remember that. And technically it's on YouTube, so... and yeah, so in that, it's pretty funny. I think Quentin Flynn voices/sings as Timon in that episode, and every time Timon sings Stand By Me, bad things happen to poor Pumbaa. Every time he sings the lyrics Stand By Me. So Pumbaa, Pumbaa, stand by me, and then shit happens to Pumbaa. Pardon my French, but it's true. And you even have a couple of singing frogs there, so... So that was the first time I got to see that, was when my family and we went to Disney World, and we would have that up on the TV. And once all of the cartoons would finish, then would play a Disney sing-along, and then it would just start back from the beginning. If you know about that, even whenever like trailers comes out, like there's even another channel called Company Clips. So any of you that have gone to Disney World and know about that stuff, yeah, good. Anyway, so, and also, like, for Zazu, there's an episode with Zazu that I remember very well. Actually, technically two, because one that really focuses on Zazu. Basically, what he does is making sure that everything is straight and clear in the African savannah. Because, well, it's kind of, take for example, like in The Lion King itself, giving Mufasa the morning report and, what had been going on so far in the African savannas, what the animals have been doing, that. So making sure that everything's going okay and so on. And unfortunately, because his workplace is an entire mess, and there's one character, it's a stork, yeah. And basically the stork, who is an inspector, yeah, being voiced by the late legendary Tony Jay. And, not only did Michael Goff voiced Zazu, but also another fill-in for Rowan Atkinson as Zazu, Edward Hebert, if I'm saying his last name right. I think a lot of people would remember him best being in Frasier. So, yeah, him, the British guy, at the radio station. So, yeah, so he voiced Zazu for 2 episodes. Yeah, unfortunately, because the inspector, the stork inspector, unfortunately showed up, and, well, because the place did not look that good, and thus Zazu was fired, and him trying to take on other jobs in the African savannah. But then he gets help from Rafiki, and, by looking in a reflecting pool and seeing himself, that whole thing, and basically, whom took Zazu's place was that groundhog who made one appearance in The Lion King, voiced by Jim Cummings, Sir, news from the underground, that's him, so it's this, but, you have those moments. So it was nice to see that groundhog, we got more of him. So, and by the way, there's one moment, actually, this happened twice, but this I remember very well, because when Zazu's trying to clean the mess and digging things out, at one point, Scar pops out. Yeah, technically, we got Scar in the Timon and Pumbaa series, just for like a silent, quick cameo, one of those things in cartoons, yeah. And also, out of all those characters, Nala didn't appear as well. I mean, if they wanted to if they considered her appearing, that would have been nice, but, yeah, unfortunately, she never appears in the show, so, yeah. So, that was a pretty good episode with, that story/segment, and eventually, Zazu does get his job back, because the groundhog he messed things up. Fish are flying in the sky, flying fish. Giraffes are in the ground, in the holes. Just crazy things happening, yeah. So again, Zazu, he gets the job back, but technically he's taking the groundhog's place. That was pretty funny. And another one that I remember very well with Zazu, but it also had Rafiki and Simba. Zazu was given a story. Rafiki told Zazu a story. It was about Timon and Pumbaa, how Timon and Pumbaa first met. Very different, of course, than what we would get, what is officially canon, what happens in The Lion King 1.5, how Timon and Pumbaa met. But there is still, a colony of meerkats that we see in this episode where Rafiki tells Zazu this story of how they met. So that's what happens, yeah, so I think Timon got banished and such, and then at one point he met Pumbaa, and then they helped out his fellow meerkats, but yeah. And there's one part where, it was funny, because Zazu showed up, and, well, no, I'm sorry, Simba, because Zazu made a comment about Simba, like, next you expect he's gonna ask me to change his diaper, and Rafiki pointing out to Zazu he's right behind him, and Simba showing up, he heard, and, hello Zazu, I'm ready for my diaper change. That's funny. And let's talk about Simba, because, yeah, Simba, he appeared a good chunk in the show, because, well, where's Cam Clark? There he is. Yeah, if I did or did not say this already, in 4 episodes, Simba appeared in 4 episodes, and Simba was the only voice role that Cam Clark had in this. So, 2 episodes that I can remember very well on, aside from the one that I just talked about. 2 episodes that I can remember very well. Technically 3, because, one is where Timon and Pumbaa, they're trying to wake Simba up, but, he's not waking up, but eventually he does. And also, they're trying to get help from Simba, like, to protect, waking him up so he can protect them, which, of course, yeah, that's what happens. Scaring off someone who's almost about to, eat Timon and Pumbaa. And there's another one where they're in Roman time. They're in the Roman city and such. And one antagonist that appeared a good chunk in the show, being voiced by Quentin. I'm sorry. Corey Burton voiced, he voiced 2 characters that appeared a good chunk of times in Timon and Pumbaa. Okay, so it's Quint. That's his name. So Quint did pop up quite a few times in the Timon and Pumbaa show, and, he is basically, like, the antagonist. I think, yeah, there were a few other antagonists, but, yeah, definitely Quint is one of them. And in one episode, in the episode where they're in Rome, and, yeah, the Roman times and so on, Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba, well, apparently at one point, Simba was captured, and now, because he is forced to eat his friends, and Quint is basically the ruler and of this tournament and so on, and he would his name would be changed a little bit, like, with the Roman times, his name being altered, still Quint, but, that, given that Roman name taste, So, Simba, he of course won't eat his friends. They at one point, like, pretend that, they are eaten, but of course that doesn't work. And if he doesn't eat them, well, then, the alteration is for Simba to, fight off against a very strong and tough lion. And, I wish I could remember the name of that lion, but I'll remember to be sure to put his name in the text, because, yeah, that being Simba's opponent, and, well, Timon and Pumbaa, they want Simba to succeed in such, and so later that evening, they basically, what they do is just keep the lion up all night. So, even at one point, like, with them trying to keep him up all night, well, asking him to do whatever they want, like, well, because by like, basically having him be, having, like, a thorn or such, his like, lion paws, like, hit something, pointy and so on, they remove it, and thus, he'll do anything for them. Like, at one point, like, Timon asks the lion to buy him a rocket, like, skateboard, but that's not what they're supposed to be doing, like, just to keep him up all night and do these things with him until, the next morning, well, because the tournament is about to happen, but, well, the lion then goes to sleep because, again, they basically kept him up all night. And, well, because, basically Simba won, but Quint is not finished, and, well, there's a little chase, but unfortunately, Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba, they accidentally cause the city of Rome to collapse and such, be in ruins, that whole thing. So that was a pretty funny story/segment. And the other time that they came face-to-face with Quint that I remember so well is in one of them, when they would come face to face with Quint again, Timon and Pumbaa have to save a friend of theirs named Speedy the snail, and he wears a hat, and Speedy also being voiced by Corey Burton. And yeah, there are a couple of times where, Timon and Pumbaa, they have to save poor Speedy from anything that's about to harm him or eat him, and in the end, they succeed on helping Speedy, but then it doesn't last that long for there to be something else, and the whole thing of, oh no, here we go again, and the story finishes. So yeah, one episode where they have to save Speedy from Quint, because Quint was about to cook poor Speedy, and being in this restaurant, and their attempts to save Speedy, which in the end, they do save Speedy, as I established, and what happens with poor Speedy. And by the way, because Quint, having a signature look and how we know it's Quint, and whenever he would pop up again on the show, because having this red nose or something, and having a 5 o'clock shadow, basically. In fact, I think, because there was one time, a couple of other times they came face to face with him, I guess, one episode where they're in this, one location where it's snowy, and I think, because there was one where he was, a prisoner, and speaking of which, because another antagonist of theirs that they came face-to-face with at times, a little bluebird named Jimmy. And little Jimmy was voiced by Jess Harnell. Yeah, because I mentioned Jess Harnell, and now that I'm mentioning him, he's the voice of little Jimmy. Little Jimmy seems like a cute and harmless little bluebird, but apparently not, because I remember this, where there was one episode where the first time they encountered little Jimmy, being all nice and such, most notably to Pumbaa, but when it's just Timon, he basically is not the cute little friendly bluebird that you think he is, because his facial expressions completely change, and this deep voice he has, going from a cute, innocent, sweet voice to just that kind of voice and such, shut up you, and stuff like that. Jess Harnell, he nailed at that. He's definitely one of those top voice actors that's so good, And also, another antagonist, I guess you could say, that they sometimes came face-to-face with, and who would partner up with little Jimmy, this bear named Smolder the Bear, and who voiced Smolder the Bear? Because there's one episode where Timon and Pumbaa, they end up in jail, and, they come face-to-face with their some familiar faces, which, of course, being little Jimmy and Smolder. I don't seem to... It's not coming up, but I'll remember to make sure and to put the voice actor's name in the text who voiced Smolder. Basically, because, little Jimmy acting cute and innocent towards Smolder, and if ever Timon and Pumbaa were to do something to little Jimmy, because by having Smolder basically kick their butts, basically. And towards the end, because little Jimmy and Smolder, they're being freed from jail, then little Jimmy starts, acting mean and such to Smolder, and then things get really intense for them, and then they're thrown back in jail, so poor Timon and Pumbaa having to deal with them once again, so that was pretty funny. And then there's another episode where I remember, because they have to get past this ram, I think so, ram, goat, whichever which, because they're trying to get past a gate, and the goat/ram is there to guard it, and there's no way they can get past him, and the many attempts for them to get past the goat/ram don't work, especially one time Pumbaa's dressed up as a girl to get its attention, his attention, and then one of the final times that they do, I guess they try to make, him laugh, and then starts laughing, and it turns out, I think he's supposed to be, I guess, a cousin of Timon's. Well, it is a meerkat. He is a meerkat in disguise, and then we see Timon and Pumbaa taking off disguises they're apparently not Timon and Pumbaa. Someone else dressing up as Timon and Pumbaa, I guess. So, yeah. And then they start, like, kicking him and such with their horns, like, like Ball or something. It was funny. Also, other episodes that I can think of and remember, 2 times where each of them, Timon and Pumbaa, would fall in love with someone. Like, one episode where Pumbaa, there's a female warthog that falls in love with Pumbaa, and then there's an episode that, centers on Timon, where he's trying to get a kiss from a female meerkat by basically them being in movies. And towards the end of Timon, he plays the part of the hero rescuing the female meerkat and giving her a kiss. Well, unfortunately for poor Timon, his attempts to do so fail because a snake keeps popping up and ruining all this. And poor Timon getting wounded and injured. And then, when the movie premiere happens, and basically a montage of what they filmed, and Pumbaa was the director, and by all that being shown on screen, and what happens to poor Timon, and by that point, he's in bandages and in a wheelchair, and everybody watching the movie and just laughing. Even Pumbaa laughs. But in the end, the female meerkat, goes up to Timon and is very, finds it very sweet of him, whatever, and does give him a kiss. And yeah, that was nice. There's one story/segment in an episode where, which one do I want to... Well, okay, because I was thinking of this a lot. Where Timon basically reads Pumbaa a couple of fairy tale stories because Pumbaa's having trouble sleeping, and most notably, one of the stories that he tells is Goldilocks and the 3 warthogs. Instead of bears, it's warthogs, and basically it's 3 Pumbaas playing the part of the 3 warthogs. The mama warthog, the papa warthog, and the baby warthog. There's even at one point we see a little warthog that's supposed to be a mouse, and I remember because, the little, mouse-sized warthog popping up, of course it's Timon, and, him saying, "Oops, I'm not in this story." That was funny. And who else, playing Goldilocks than Timon, of course. So, and towards the end, because if you know the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, then and they find Goldilocks in the baby bear's bed, and in this case, with the 3 warthogs, finding the Goldilocks meerkat in the baby warthog's bed, and what happens is, the Goldilocks, the meerkat, gets arrested, and we see 2 vultures who are policemen, police vultures, basically being thrown into an asylum or something, being, wrapped around, kind of say, Hannibal Lecter, that whole thing. And towards the end of the episode of that story/segment, well, Pumbaa, I think, by that point, had already fallen to sleep, and, well, because, after all that tough time, trying to help him, read stories to Pumbaa and such, just Pumbaa, the very last shot of that segment/story ends with Timon just looking straight at the camera and just his facial expression is just about to lose it. Oh, that's a shot right there. So, okay, and another one I was thinking of now, because now I can mention it. There's one episode where Timon and Pumbaa come face to face, because one thing in the Timon and Pumbaa show, and as I mentioned, Quint, he's a human character. There are times where human characters do show up in the Timon and Pumbaa series. The first and only time we see human characters in something Lion King material. Yeah, and it definitely shows that the Timon and Pumbaa series is pretty much most likely the first and last time we would see human characters. And it's acceptable and understandable, and with what goes on, and the premise of the Timon and Pumbaa series. So one episode where, they come face to face with one female human who's, I guess, an African explorer or something, and her coming face to face with Timon and Pumbaa, her treating Pumbaa very kind and such at first, but giving Timon a hard time, not treating him that well, and then I think, there's a reverse and such, and then at a certain point, because they're driving her nuts, up to the point where she completely loses it and becomes a wild animal, basically, eating grubs and becoming a jungle girl, and then she gets captured. I'm sure some of you would probably know that episode. It's pretty funny. And then there's another episode that I actually did watch very recently. Another one of those episodes that I watched, where Timon and Pumbaa are caught in the middle with two cheetahs. Cheetah being voiced by Rob Paulsen, I have them up, and Cheetah being voiced by Jim Cummings. So these two cheetahs, well, because of hence their names, they're cheetahs. Basically, the cheetahs are planning to eat Timon and Pumbaa. I guess, Pumbaa being the main meal course and Timon being like a side dish, yeah. They first capture Timon, and well, Pumbaa was going to help and save his best friend / pal. But then, at one point, when Pumbaa made his way to the cheetah's hideout place, their hut, basically, Timon basically, he was tricking the cheetahs, of course, but Pumbaa took it the wrong way. He overheard. Basically, Timon was basically tricking the two cheetahs into teaming up with them and to lure Pumbaa to them, and thus they would gobble him up. So Pumbaa took it the wrong way. And, well, by doing this, Timon was, going to fetch Pumbaa, but really, he was going to escape along with Pumbaa. But unfortunately, of course, the two cheetahs kind of overheard, and yeah, so Timon is kind of messed up there. So, and Pumbaa just, again, he took it the wrong way, and he just basically lets Timon have it, and then Timon gets upset and gets angry with Pumbaa. And towards the end, well, because, of course, it doesn't take too long for things to be patched up between Pumbaa and Timon, and it seems like, they're going to escape from the two cheetahs, but not quite, because, they're caught in the middle, like, they come face to face with the cheetahs once again, and at one point, the cheetahs call Pumbaa by pig. By calling him a pig, that triggers Pumbaa. And just like in the movie, when Banzai called Pumbaa a pig, hey, who's the pig? And then Pumbaa, are you talking to me? And because the cheetahs called him a pig, well, they're completely screwed. And Timon, just like what he said in the movie, shouldn't have done that. Now they're in for it. And of course, yeah, Pumbaa saying the exact same lines that he said in the movie. Same thing with Timon, for Pumbaa. They call me Mr. Pig. And thus, he charges at the cheetahs, and the cheetahs are disposed of, taken care of, and all ends well for Timon and Pumbaa. So yeah. Okay, here's the thing. In The Lion King 1.5, because we know that, well, Timon and Pumbaa made it back to Pride Rock to fight off against the hyenas, and well, because when Pumbaa came in to help Timon as well as Zazu, and, Banzai calling him Pig, well, he easily took care of Shenzi and Banzai while Ed was outside waiting. So, yeah, but then a little bit later, Timon and Pumbaa help Simba distract the hyenas so Simba can proceed on confronting Scar. Well, why didn't the hyenas call him Pig again? Because Pumbaa would have easily handled them, because, but not that I want to make a huge deal about it and such. It's fine, okay? It's fine how it is in the movie and such, and what happens towards the end when Timon defeats the hyenas. And technically, he was responsible for Scar's death, because the hyenas going down that tunnel, and then they catch up with Scar, and we know what happens next. So, yeah. And is there anything else I want to mention about Timon and Pumbaa? Any other episodes? Well, actually, yeah, because there is one episode, I remember a little bit, where apparently, because Timon and Pumbaa, of course, getting... Actually, no, two more things I want to mention, because there's one character that did appear a good chunk of times, I think for 5 episodes, and that is Boss Beaver. Now, Boss Beaver, again, appeared a good chunk of times in the show for 5 episodes, and Boss Beaver, and I had a feeling this was him. Brad Garrett is the voice of Boss Beaver, because there's another episode that I watched recently, one of the stories / the segments that has Boss Beaver. Timon and Pumbaa are at this beaver amusement park, and At times, this little kid beaver who's a mischievous beaver getting Timon and Pumbaa into trouble by breaking stuff and destroying stuff in the beaver amusement park. And, well, because the blame is put on Timon and the boss beaver, what he says to them, you break it, you buy it! Brad Garrett, his shouting and anger when doing voice acting is so hilarious. However, how he voices Boss Beaver, he changes his voice up a little bit. I mean, usually, Brad Garrett just uses his natural voice, but for Boss Beaver, he made a small adjustment to it. Just a little, still. I'm sure you would tell, and if you've seen the episodes where Boss Beaver does appear. So, as I said, the blame being put on Timon and Pumbaa, most notably Timon, and so they have to work in certain parts of the Beaver amusement park in order to, repay, but again, because the blame being put on them, but it's really the little kid beaver, and towards the end, well, because, they reveal to the boss beaver who it is that's been doing this and not them, and it turns out that the little mischievous, troublemaking beaver turns out to be the boss beaver's son, and he doesn't think it could be his son, but at one point, because when they do go on a log flume ride, because something happens, and, Timon and Pumbaa now turn it to them, or something, but yeah, eventually the boss beaver does see that his son has been doing all of this, but yeah, it's pretty funny how it ends. And two more things that I want to mention, because two other story/segments that I remember a little, because there's one where Pumbaa is dressed up as a baby, baby warthog, and which, by the way, a bit of footage with, Pumbaa dressed as a baby would find its way in the Disney sing-along video/DVD, Flick's Musical Adventure, because, one song where it's about, babies, and at the start of it, Flick, asking us, what does a warthog, something, baby, what does a warthog have in common with, a baby or whatever, baby warthogs, if you remember that. So, a bit of footage from that episode of Timon and Pumbaa is in there, so yeah, I remember it so well. And the last one I want to mention is one episode, story/segment where, once again, Timon and Pumbaa find themselves into, big trouble where, they fall down a long, tall cliff. The fall it takes quite a while, and for Timon and Pumbaa, because they think they're going to die, because they think and look back on their friendship and all the things they've done, a little montage of what happened in the show. And right as they're about to, fall down and, meet their demise, well, of course, they survive and all ends well, if you remember that episode. So yeah. So I thought I'd mention that, and, best way for that being the last one, for me to mention and talk about. Also, a quick mentioning about the intro, because, yeah, the intro is memorable. Of course, it has to be the Hakuna Matata song, and the show's version of it, and, getting a montage of what goes on in the show, a couple of changes that would happen in the intro, some clips being changed and such, that whole thing. Some animated shows that have done that before, I can think of, say, other Disney animated shows during the 90s, The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, so yeah, except for, say, Tailspin, I'm pretty sure, because the intro had always stayed the same, but also I think Chip and Dale kind of had a little change, but just with a little bit of the music and how it was sung, if you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, overall, yeah, the intro to the Timon and Pumbaa show, which of course, having it to be Hakuna Matata, really good and memorable. So the Timon and Pumbaa series, what a great, memorable, nostalgic Disney animated show for anybody who grew up in the 90s and with The Lion King and watched the Timon and Pumbaa show, what the Timon and Pumbaa show had in store, what it had to offer with its stories / segments, and, you know, what happens with Timon and Pumbaa, the adventures they go on, and finding themselves into trouble, and, you know, special appearances from other Lion King characters, from Simba, Rafiki, Zazu, the three hyenas, Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed, as well as, like, say, the groundhog, and very quick, small, quiet, silent cameos of Scar. He just, like, for a few seconds pops up and that's it. So, you know, one of those things. And with the characters that were in the show that they would come face-to-face with, from Little Jimmy, the Bear, Quint, Boss Beaver, and so on, yeah. Just, this episode had a lot of great slapstick, funny humor, just everything, and how it's definitely giving you that, like, Looney Tunes vibes with what happens in the Looney Tunes with the slapstick, and, you know, sometimes the characters would stumble and get hurt, all that, yeah. Just, the Timon and Pumbaa series, it's a great piece of Disney television animation, and especially during the good old days of Disney TV animation, especially from the 90s. And for those, getting to watch this, you know, new generation of Lion King fans getting to watch this on Disney Plus is great, and just, yeah. And especially just, you know, how, you know, it's one of those shows that, you know, when it aired on Disney Channel, and I think it probably did get some DVD releases, I'm pretty sure, and for it to finally be seen on streaming, you know, in full, complete HD, and so on, it's great. It's great to see. And I'm giving the Timon and Pumbaa show, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for the Timon and Pumbaa show. Again, it's just great. So memorable, and how this is pretty much the only piece of Lion King material that's not canon to the movies. It definitely shows. And as I pointed out, this being the first and most likely only Lion King piece of material where we see humans. Pretty much, yeah. Just again, the Timon and Pumbaa show, series, you know, it's good, memorable, and during the good old days of Disney TV animation. And what about you guys? What do you think on the Timon and Pumbaa animated show itself? Any of you that grew up in the 90s during, you know, when The Lion King basically became phenomenal and basically took over the world, and watching, you know, when the Timon and Pumbaa show happened and watching it, did you get to watch it when it was re-aired in the early 2000s? Any of you getting to watch it on Disney Plus, and any of you for the first time watching the Timon and Pumbaa show on Disney Plus, the perfect opportunity to do so. Do you remember, like, you know, which episode is your favorite and that you've seen on TV? And if you remember seeing the music cover of Stand By Me, sung by Timon, when going to Disney World that I brought up early on, just, yeah. Just overall, what do you think of the show itself? Is it one of your favorite Disney TV animation shows from the 90s, etc.? And with what I've had to say about it, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the Timon and Pumbaa show. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. Take care, and peace out. Hakuna Matata.